Good evening and welcome to take two of the NewsBud Telethon here on Wednesday evening. I'm Peter B. Collins in San Francisco, and we're working through some technical issues. We were talking for the last half hour, but you weren't able to see us because of a linking problem with YouTube. And Spiro, I'll just let you know that I don't see the stream on my YouTube screen over here yet. So he is our technical director, and he's holed up in a hotel room in Merced, California, trying to make the broadband work under difficult circumstances. So keep us posted on that, Spiro. Sibel Edmonds is with me. She, of course, is the founder of BoilingFrogsPost.com and the founder of the new NewsBud platform. That's why we're here this evening, to tell you about NewsBud and to invite you to help fund this 100% publicly funded and independent news outlet that we plan to launch in September of this year. All it takes is the funding, and that's what we're here to ask your help with this evening. So we'd like you to log on to newsbud.com. That will link you up to our Kickstarter page. Kickstarter is where we are hosting our crowdfunding campaign. We now have 902 contributors. And the amount that we've raised so far is $88,200. Now, that is a healthy start, but we've got a long way to go to our goal of $950,000. Sibel, we had linked up with Professor Mickey Huff from Project Censored, and he sends his apologies because he had allotted time for us to talk, and at this point he had to go teach a class. And so he has agreed to come back with us on a future telethon for NewsBud, but he made the case that Project Censored contends with many of the issues that we have in our efforts with Boiling Frogs Post and with the NewsBud concept that we hope to bring to life later this year. And that is, when you report on controversial issues like 9/11, like stolen elections, like other issues that are sometimes called conspiracy theories, but we prefer to call them state crimes against democracy, well, we see that funding dries up. If you're an advertiser-supported platform, the advertisers will go away. And if you've been relying on foundation grants, well, they get real skittish when controversy strikes. So, Sibel, this is why you are so adamant. I mean, you are. That's fair to say. You're adamant that this is going to be 100% funded by our viewers, listeners, and readers.
Absolutely. And we are not going to give in even 0.5%, even 1%, because we have seen all these other models at work. We have seen the foundation models at work, and for some reason people distinguish between foundations and mega corporations. They are the same thing. When you have Rockefellers and Soros and sugar daddies like Pierre Omidyar and Jeff Bezos and Koch brothers, when they are dishing out, who do you think these people are? Where do you think they got their billions of dollars? Where do you think they got those hundred millions of dollars that they are pouring into these so-called alternative media outlets? Well, it is the same. There is no difference. And people, they don't realize. They say, well, I get it for free. And we always try to make them understand there is no such a thing as free lunch. It doesn't exist, okay? It doesn't exist. It is some kind of an illusion, or maybe it's the denial for people's part. They're saying, fine, I'll put up with some advertisement here and there, but it's not only about advertisement. There is so much more. It is the systematic brainwashing. It is the psychological warfare. It is the propaganda, and repeating that propaganda over and over and over again. As Hitler said, you just repeat the same lie, over and over again, it becomes the fact, a new reality. Well, that's exactly what they are doing. And I don't care what people say. I don't care what they think in terms of being immune. None of us are immune. Even if we don't realize subconsciously, the propaganda, the brainwashing, the psychological warfare is at work. It goes in there into our subconscious. And so that's why I say, no way. It's going to be 100% people funded. It's going to be non-partisan. And you're going to see issues that people on the right consider important. And you're going to see issues people on the left, people in the center, they're going to consider important. And there will be anybody who's going to come to NewsBud will, in a few seconds of looking at what we cover, how we cover news, analysis, various programs that we are going to broadcast, they're going to see that it's everything, because that's the real journalism. I mean, you can't say if this particular cover-up involves some kind of an issue that is to the right of the spectrum, I'm not going to touch it, or vice versa. Oh, this is the left, this is the liberals issue, therefore. But that's how they're operating. You know, New York Times and you know, a bunch of other left-sided mainstream media, okay, they basically say, this is our demographic, and we are going to cover what they want us to cover, or what we believe they should based on where they are in the spectrum. Same thing with Washington Times and all the so-called right publications. They don't want to touch any issues, no matter how significant, no matter how applicable to everyone, that they consider, you know, to be the left's issue. And between the two of those, what we have is, we have uninformed people, we have people who are being filled every single day, pumped with propaganda. And they go and they are doing the same thing. You know what Einstein said? Insanity, he said, is repeating the same thing over and over and over and over again with the same result. That's insanity. So people, up until this point, they have been saying, oh yeah, let's go to the alternative media funded by the sugar daddies. We'll take it. Maybe they're going to be different. The ones who have been, you know, they've been going and keep going to the mainstream media. And then they complain, they say, why we see no change, why things are getting worse, why we are where we are. Well, it's because we are repeating the same thing, as Einstein said, over and over and over and over. Well, we are defying that, and we are saying this is the model. It is not out there. You can't find any model. I haven't seen it. Have you, Peter? Have resources, have full-time investigative journalists season, have everything, no advertisement, no mega corporations, and no sugar daddies from the foundations. We don't want to even owe the government anything, okay? Because if you're a journalistic entity, let's say you're an organization and you're 501c3, government says, fine, you don't pay tax because you're 501c3, okay? We exempt you, but they give you these hundreds of pages of forms, Peter, and they say you have to abide by that. So this is what we mean by there is no free lunch. And believe me, government is not going to give us free lunch either. Now you, Peter, and Spiro.
Well, yeah, Spiro, jump in here, because you're going to be working with NewsBud as an investigative reporter. You've done a lot of field reporting for your own YouTube channel. And give us your thoughts about how the work you do contrasts with the corporate media's product here in the United States.
Well, if we rely upon the corporate media, I mean, that's pretty much a joke at this point. I think that everyone out there can and does realize that the mainstream media is not to be trusted, that they have an agenda, that they're bought off. And it's funny, though, you still see people referring back to them as a credible source, even though time and time again we've seen them discredit themselves and caught lying. And it's like a Hollywood production, basically. You know, they have their very effective model for propaganda, their high dollar, you know, $1 million sets, studios, everything like that, and it's scripted. A lot of the news is completely scripted, and they not only are spoon feeding you the news the way that they want you to perceive it, but they're also telling you what to buy and where to shop and everything like that. And to me, you can't rely on that corporate mentality, that fascist mentality. We see the corporations and the governments working hand in hand. And so the best way to get the source, the information, is directly, you know, directly from the source on the scene. That's some of the what I'm looking to contribute to NewsBud is to be able to go anywhere and everywhere I can. If some type of an event is taking place, cover that event there directly. Use our resources to get the interviews on the ground, get that footage, and just approach it from a totally independent way to where what the people are wanting to know. The people are not wanting to know what the Kardashians are up to, or at least not the people I hang out with. But it's an exciting project that I'm very much looking forward to be a part of, and I'm hoping that we reach our goal to make this happen. Working with guys with our team is just incredible. It really is, and it's always enjoyable, like listening to Pepe and Corbett earlier talking that 20-minute piece that they did. Excellent piece.
Well, Spiro, since you mentioned that, let's cue that up and get ready to share that with our viewers right now. I want to note that we have increased our number of contributors by 5 since we started this telethon. We're now at 905 contributors, and I want to thank everyone who has recently donated, including Federico, who has put in $500, and somebody named Wayne about an hour ago donated $2,500. That may be the largest contribution that we've seen to date. So we're very encouraged by this. We also want to encourage small contributions because we realize that not everybody can just whip out their checkbook or their credit card and donate without thinking about the amount. What is important for us is the number of donors, because that is a validation of our concept. Each one of you who registers at Kickstarter and puts in $1 or $5, you are sending a message that even though you're not a wealthy individual who has disposable cash, that you're voting for NewsBud. So I'd like to encourage you, even if it's a small amount, to come over to our Kickstarter page right now and donate as generously as you can. We appreciate each contribution, and as I said, it sends an important message of validation about the need for NewsBud and your personal support for it. So, Spiro, you mentioned that yesterday, I think it was, James Corbett and Pepe Escobar released an 18-minute video conversation that was mostly about Syria. And Pepe Escobar is somebody that every one of us on the NewsBud team has incredible respect for. I've been talking to Pepe for more than 6 years, and in 2012, he happened to be in the United States, and he came to my house, and we drank wine together while we watched one of the debates between Obama and Mitt Romney. And I've gotten to know him as a remarkable guy who is from Brazil, but he spent a lot of time in the United States. He's got our number. He understands American culture. He's a big fan of our music and movies. He's extremely well read. And he also offers important perspectives from offshore, critical commentary about the United States and some of our incredibly empty policies, particularly those that relate to the war in Syria right now. And at the conclusion of this interview, James Corbett asked Pepe for a quick recap. And that's what we're going to play for you right now, because in just 2 minutes, Pepe gives you an incredible briefing on the complex mess in Syria. Let's take a look.
The business model is there, but it depends on people. I know it's horrible to hit people for money. I know, I don't like that. But it's the only way if you need independent news on the net. There is no business model for anybody. The business model of having a guy with a day job blogging 10 hours a day at night until 5 in the morning and trying to make ends meet during the day, it's not professional journalism. These guys are great, but we need a model, and we need to integrate these guys to a bigger news organization financed by you know, the average citizen everywhere in North America, across Europe, across Eurasia. So that's the basic idea of NewsBud, and that's why I'm heavily implicated on it. And let's hope it works. So like you said before, the goal is very ambitious on Kickstarter. And we are still less than 10% of our goal with 50 days to go. So in the next 50 days, you know, it's much more important than what's happening in Syria. Let's make NewsBud work.
Well, there you go. We can help actually change the world. And
yes.
Right now we have 831 backers as we record this conversation. I know there's going to be at least 10,000 people watching this on YouTube, another 10,000 downloading the audio from my site. I'm sure we can get more than 831 people on board with this. So again, if you do have the funds to contribute, please do.
Join the army. And it's not the army of conquest. You don't even have to shoot an AK-47 and conquer the Turkish-Syrian border. If you shell out $10, in a few months you're gonna have the best independent online media anywhere.
All right, well, I'm looking forward to it, and I'm sure we'll have plenty more conversations like this one, trying to make a sense of this convoluted mess that is being created there in Syria and elsewhere around the globe. Pepe Escobar, thank you for your time as always.
Thank you so much, James, and keep it up. Thanks.
That's Pepe Escobar with James Corbett, and you can find a link to that full video. I believe it's up on the NewsBud page. Is that right, Sibel?
What was the question, Peter?
Is the James Corbett and Pepe Escobar interview currently on the NewsBud page?
No, that is on Corbett's page because it is being done for Corbett Report viewers, and we will be adding that in the next 2-3 days. So we'll definitely embed that NewsBud.
Okay, great. And Pepe really offered a stunning analysis of this purported ceasefire that is different from the cessation of violence that failed a week ago. And this alleged ceasefire, of course, is selective. It doesn't apply to all of the fighting groups on the ground, including those that are supported by the United States and by Saudi Arabia. And so this is an exercise in public relations. But if you read the New York Times, or you wait for a television network to actually cover the war in Syria, you're not only going to wait a long time for the TV coverage, but the New York Times is going to give you essentially the State Department line, the White House line, but no critical commentary or independent analysis of the kind that you get from a very independent globetrotter like Pepe Escobar. And so this is really critical because in the last few years, we've seen a kind of stand down on coverage of America's foreign policy blunders. And so the Obama administration takes no political heat really from the left or right. The right snipes at Obama and says he ought to be killing more people in Syria, but they don't have any real ideas or thoughtful strategies. And what you wind up with is just people ignoring it and hoping that it will go away, kind of latching on to dreams of a ceasefire when it's very clear that the conditions on the ground won't permit it. And Sibel, you provided some of the very important early coverage on America's covert involvement in the Syrian civil war and what ultimately led to the rise of Daesh, or what we now call the Islamic State. And yet your original reporting has not really been mirrored in the mainstream media in this country.
No, you're right, Peter. In fact, we broke that story at the end of 2011. It was around October, November, based on our sources here in the United States, military sources, but also sources in Turkey. And some of these people were high-level military people. They had approached, before they came to me at Boiling Frogs Post, they had approached the New York Times and I believe Washington Post, a documented report that since May, June 2011, with the U.S. Air Base in Turkey, that's Incirlik Air Base, is close to Syrian-Turkish border in the south. They were training, they were bringing in the Syrian dissenters and various factions. They were training them militaristically and then arming them, and then they were funneling them back within, in batches, small batches back into, through the porous borders there between Syria and Turkey, into Syria. So we reported on that. I wrote several articles, including some, and I included at least one source's name, and there was not a peep from the mainstream media. And this is during the time when nobody had heard of Syria. Syria was not in the headline. We were just finished with Libya. So Libya was finished a few months before, and all these operations and activities began. That's why I called it ISIS or us, because these people that right now we are fighting were the ones that the United States, and this is NATO and the CIA factions, they brought into Turkey in the US airbase. They trained them, they armed them, they sent them, and they are directing them. And to say that we are having this fight and war with this entity called ISIS, we have been basically, we have been opposing the entire notion that they have been selling the public. And it's no different, Peter, than what they did with Al-Qaeda. I mean, that's exactly what we did with Al-Qaeda. I mean, sure, it started in 1980s with the Afghan-Soviet war, but we were using them. We used them, Al-Qaeda factions, during the Balkan Wars. In 1996, 1997, we, again, together with our proxy, Turkey, we were taking all these, not only Chechens, but Al-Qaeda factions from Saudi Arabia, from Pakistan, into Turkey, then from Turkey into the Balkans, and we were operating there in the Balkans together, we being the United States, with the same faction. And yet they are some terror list, We have done that with KLA. Maybe temporarily we'll take them off the terror list, State Department's terror list, and then later we can put them back in there. So we have people going in and out. But as you said, Peter, nobody covered it. It was there, and the article that the series that I wrote were read by tens of thousands of people. It was all over the internet. It was picked up by major media outlets outside the United States, but there was not a peep here. But I'm not talking about the mainstream media only. There was not a peep from either the left or the right so-called alternatives. Nothing whatsoever.
Well, and we see this on too much of a regular basis now, where the corporate media takes its cues from the administration and from the Pentagon. And they're mostly focused on preserving their access to a big story in the future. And we've seen exposed, in one little window or another, the way the CIA plays the media. And their PR experts work with high-profile reporters, and there's a give and take that, we're going to give you an exclusive on the latest leak that we officially want to put into the system in exchange for you not reporting about this or that or the other thing. And it's very effective. And some of the outlets that we used to rely on, 20 years ago, we thought that 60 Minutes was the hard-hitting investigative news magazine that would never defer to any power center, that they were supreme and that they would report the truth. Well, starting with the exposure of the way they spiked the reports on the addictive nature of tobacco and the way that tobacco companies were actually adding nicotine to hook smokers more deeply, up through the episodes of 9/11, of the pre-war shenanigans with Iraq. And then, Sibel, you had your own experience with 60 Minutes, where they strung you along and finally ran a story that represented what, about 40, maybe 50% or less of what you told them?
I would say less than that, much less than that. it started, I didn't want to give any interviews to anyone, but they went through 2 months of persuasion process, trying to convince me through my attorneys and the pressure. They promised me everything. I said, well, my case had just begun, and it hasn't even been completed through the court system. They said, we promise we will be covering this, and we will come back and we'll have updates. You know, they give you the moon before you start. And for that 15-minute segments, they had over 1.5 hours of footage. And the way they pieced it together, these chunks, it basically was, I mean, it was not really in any way pejorative, but it really had nothing to do with my case. There was no mentioning of state secrets privilege. There was no mentioning of NATO and the CIA and the operations that have been, you know, we have talked about that. None of those. They basically had this demure, cute, you know, woman who, poor thing, was fired, and her life was destroyed by the FBI, and the hardship. You know, she can't even go back to her country. She's wanted there. And in a way, it sent this message, or it was meant to send this message, that if you are even thinking of blowing a whistle, just take a look at her. Let her be an example, okay? This is what you don't do, people. And that was the effect that 60 Minutes piece had. As I said, I mean, they didn't lie, because that was me talking, but all the things that they can do in the editorial and the chopping room, I call it chopping and piecemealing room, it can change the entire effect of what that interview is about and what is supposed to be. Well, the whole process teaches you. For example, nowadays, if I get, you know, very rarely a request for an interview like that, I always like to have one person with me who records the interview. I know, with iPhone or a camera. And as soon as I give them that condition, they go, no. I said, why not? You know, I just got one, I mean, they have been inviting me for the past 2 months, and this is one of the top Russian producers, and they want to interview me on Operation Gladio, etc. And I said, well, sure, but I want to have my camera person there, and everything you're recording, we're going to record. Because I know exactly what they're after. Currently, there is this tension between Russia and Turkey. So they are going to take anything and isolate Turkey from the CIA and NATO as a Gladio operation. And they're going to show that Turkey as a standalone, independent maverick that's been doing all these, you know, horrible deeds. And I know the game. That's one of the things that 15 years teaches you through the experience. So they keep coming back, and I say, sure, we can organize it. You can come here. I'm going to have my camera person there. And they're saying, well, we can't have that. I'm like, why not? Right.
Sibel, coming back to your 60 Minutes experience, what you described is that they operate as gatekeepers, all right? You've got information, you bring it to them, and they filter it and decide what is safe for them to report. And that's what I want to draw a sharp contrast with. NewsBud will not be a gatekeeper. We're going to be opening gates. We're going to be disseminating information over the objections of people who would prefer that you not know certain things. And it's the independence that we derive from being publicly funded. That means that average people are supporting this operation so that we don't rely on advertisers and on foundations or other sources of money that can compromise the work that we do. And we got a question from one of our viewers about how we're going to sustain NewsBud once we raise our initial capital that is intended to cover the first year of operations. And Sibel, why don't you answer that? I know it's going to be part based on subscriptions and part based on occasional fundraisers.
Yes, actually it's going to have 3 elements in it, at least for the first 2 years. Our investigative news, when we start, is going to be open to all. So everything in our homepage in terms of investigative stories, that will be open to all. And any kind of, again, investigative news production, those would be open to all. And however, we will have certain programs such as our roundtable discussions, our live chats, our telethons. our mini documentaries, and certain special features that we will have subscription requirement for, and we are going to make it as cheap as we can make, which is going to be $1 a month, $12 a year basically. And we are going to try to make this model work based on the large number of people who can, and I can't imagine anyone who can't afford $1 a month. I mean, that is, you can't even get a cup of coffee for $1 a month. And we will also have, during the first few years until we reach the needed number of subscribers to sustain and expand. I mean, when people they look at this number, Peter, they say $950,000. Wow, that's outrageous. But they have to look at it as this $950,000 is going to provide salaries, healthcare benefits, and expenses for 14 full-time working individuals. And these individuals have to pay rent, they have to eat, they have spouses, they have children, some of them. So when you look at it that way and say 14 people full-time salaries will be included for the first year of operation in what we are asking, and we need to have that. Because I ask people to go and find people who are working full-time to quit their jobs and come and work for you and not get paid. It doesn't happen that way. Mm-hmm. And it's going to pay for our studios. It's going to pay for travel. I mean, Spiro and I have been working on a couple of cases in the past 2 months, and these cases have taken us to several different states because you have to do that. You have to grab your camera. The journalist has to go, and you have to interview some witnesses on the ground. You need to get some footages to show. So just the travel alone, because we are going to be engaged in real-time reporting. So travel, headquarters, the offices, the health benefits, healthcare benefits, the 14 people's full-time salary, all the equipments, the computers, the cameras, just the IT portion of it. Because I don't trust to have only one source of servers or IT that's going to be here in the United States and operate based on that. We are going to have multiple server locations. We want to have, you know, mirror hostings. What would make our broadcast safe? Because you know what, Peter? I don't trust YouTube. I'm not going to go and depend on YouTube, and if YouTube and Google decides to pull the plug, because they can come and they can say something vague. We received complaints about you, right? And while we're investigating it, we're going to bring your YouTube site down. Simple as that. So you do have to have backup for outlets like that you're going to be using. So yes, this is the minimum amount, and this is just the beginning. We want to have more reporters within our second, third year. I'm talking about internationally and nationally, more producers. We want to challenge those big guys, the mainstream media, okay? And for that, we need the resources. And these resources, we want to only get it from the people. And we want to be accountable to the people and report for the people. And that kind of an organization doesn't exist today. It hasn't existed as far as I know.
Well, and currently we have $888,000 and 800. They're all eights except the last digit. Except somebody just ruined it because we now have 908 backers, and the total is $89,131. So I want to thank people who have watched our special broadcast this evening. We're going to take a rubber mallet to Google Hangout and to YouTube and figure out the glitches that we encountered tonight, and we will be back at you probably within a week or so with another live telethon broadcast here on many of these same channels. So I want to encourage you in the meantime to go to newsbud.com, follow the link to our Kickstarter page, share these links with your friends, and encourage them to find out more about NewsBud. If they have questions, you can bring them to us on our next telethon. We'll be happy to answer them. But the most important part is we have 49 days to raise about $870,000. And that's going to be a heavy lift. We know that. But with you, we believe that we can accomplish this. and we hope that you'll support our efforts. Sibel, as we sign off, would you like to make a final comment?
Yes, because as I said, this is the people's project. I don't know how else to say this. This is the people's project. It's us. It's we the people countering them. And with them, people know about the deep state. People who have been following our work, James Corbett's work, they know, and I have written books on that. They know about the deep state. They know about the players. They know about the 0.001%. And they have also, unfortunately, gone through this process of installed learned helplessness that has been instilled inside their brain, their psyche. They believe that we the people are hopeless and that there is nothing to do. And I don't know how many different ways we can say it, that is not the case. It's exactly the opposite. We can do a lot. Together we can accomplish so much. And this what we are trying to do here is one example of that, Peter. And that is to show that 20, 30, 40,000 people coming together, we can become our own media with resources that can counter their propaganda machine. And if I tell you this, I have gone through the whistleblowing journey, I have gone through Congress, I have gone through the courts, I have taken on John Ashcroft and the DOJ and the CIA. You know the story. You have been covering my case since 2003, Peter. This is the last stop as far as I'm concerned, because this is my journey led me here, okay? And that is actually in some way our journeys, because our team members, they are all believers. They have faith in this. But this is the last stop to say, we know that Congress is irrelevant. You know, they have been in this stall mode for decades, basically. We know what the federal courts are all about, okay? And we know about the executive branch, whether it's Trump or it's Hillary Clinton, it doesn't make any difference. Not even the slightest difference. And we all know, I'm talking about the entire country, even though they still go and buy that darn New York Times or Washington Times, they know that the mainstream media is not representing their interests. It's not about them. It's not about real information, okay? They represent the crooks and the 0.001%. So this boils down to we the people. Forget about the mainstream media and the Congress and the federal courts, okay? Don't write petitions, because that's like truly controlled opposition. Forget it. That doesn't work, okay? As Einstein said, you repeat the same thing over and over and over again and get the same result, and yet you go and repeat it again. That's the definition of insanity. So stop being insane, okay? Let's stop this insanity. Let's do this, because this is a very small, tiny action that can counter something really major and big and be a very big step towards what's needed to go towards real change. And it's very simple, it's very easy to do. And if we can't do this with this project, I don't think there is anything really left, anything else left that I haven't tried. At this point, at that point, we all have to nod and agree with the 1%ers and say, yeah, we have dumbified the people, they have gotten overridden by apathy, and there is no hope. And I hope that we are not going to get there. Right now, things are looking too bright and positive for us to get there. All I'm saying is, let's show them that we are not helpless, that we are powerful. All it takes is for us to commit to it and do it together. And thank you.
Thank you, Sibel Edmonds. And thank you for watching this special telethon. Our thanks to Spiro Skouras for working through the technical issues and guiding us along here. And be in touch. Go to newsbud.com. Give us your email address so that we can give you frequent updates on our progress. Share the NewsBud page and the Kickstarter video with your friends and all of your contacts in your networks. And if you're able, come on over to Kickstarter and be as generous as you can. For all of us here at NewsBud, I'm Peter B. Collins. Thanks for joining us.